Hi there, I'm Jeanette Lane for Simply Cards and Paper Craft, and in today's video I'm sharing how to use the botanical border gift set included in issue 179 of the magazine to create this really easy card with this decorative edge. And so what I've done here when I unravel this ribbon, this bow, sorry, it opens up to reveal just some embossing and this silver Sending Birthday Wishes embossed sentiment, which is from the stamp set. So everything that I used to make this card, I used this beautiful botanical border set, which comes with 14 stamps, and the sentiments are so cute. So we have with love, have a gorgeous day, thinking of you, sending birthday wishes. So really appropriate for all occasion cards. Okay, so let's get started. For this project, you're gonna need 2 pieces of cardstock of any color, really, it's up to you. I'm using different colors than my original card. So I have a pink and a green, and these are both cut to the same size. And so this is 5 by 5 inches by 5 by 5 inches. So they're perfect little squares, and I'm gonna set these aside for now. Next, I have 2 pieces of white cardstock. Actually, this is parchment paper. So it's really thin, light-weighted paper. And the reason I picked this is because I wanted to make sure that my die was gonna cut through both layers, because I am gonna run it through my die cutting machine and cut it on the fold. So first things first, we're going to fold 2 pieces in half, these 2 pieces in half. And I'm just doing this to save time. If you want to fold these papers separately and be really precise about it, you can use a scoreboard, but I just found it's easiest to create these panels at the same time. Now for my card, I need 2 panels, and that's why I have 2 pieces of white parchment. And I'm just doubling this up and folding them together, and I'm also gonna cut them together. I'm not gonna die cut them together, but I just felt like that would save the most time. All right, so now that I have my papers folded up in half, I'm going to trim these down to 4.5. So I'm just gonna find 4.5 inches and cutting these both at the same time to save time. We're gonna be left with 2 pieces of cardstock, sorry, 2 pieces of parchment that look something like this. So the fold is there on the left. Now for this next part, I'm keeping my pieces of parchment, folded parchment paper, on top of one another so that I can just cut a line from this point to this point. Now, depending on how pointy you want your card front to be, so these panels to be, then that would depend on how deep you cut your angle. But I don't want it to be too pointy, so I'm gonna cut maybe from right about there. So I'm keeping this point here, and then I'm gonna cut over to this side. Now I'm about to cut this from this point to this point over here, and it's important to note that the fold is on this side, so the left side. Here are my identical pieces of parchment paper, folded, trimmed. We have this angle here, and now we're going to grab our leaf border and we're going to die cut these 2 pieces. Now I'm going to place my die onto my parchment, and I want to make sure, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge, but I want to make sure that this little stem is right over the fold. And if you'll notice, the die doesn't come all the way to the edge, and that's all right because we're going to trim this up in just a bit. But again, this isn't going over my edge of my paper, but I am making sure that this little stem here goes over the fold. And again, the fold of my paper is on this side, and we're just gonna run this through my die cutting machine. So I'm gonna run this through my Big Shot Plus, and I want to make sure that the fold is on the left, that my die is not going over the page or off the page on this side, but we do want this little stem right here on the edge to go over past the fold. Okay, so this is what it looks like now, and I'm just gonna trim off this excess here with some scissors. And when we open this up, it gives us a mirrored die cut image, and that's gonna create the panels on our card front. So I'm gonna repeat the process again to create my second panel, and again, my fold is on the left side, and when I place my die, I don't wanna go over the top, but I do wanna go over the fold. Again, we're gonna trim off this excess with my scissors, and we're gonna open that up, open both of those up, and then we have our card front panels. Okay, so now I have my square piece of hot pink cardstock, and I'm going to place my panels on the front and kind of just rearrange them, eyeball it to see what I want my card front to be. If you want this to be more overlapping, then you can definitely do something beautiful and intricate like that, or if you want them even more spaced out, you can do that as well. Once I'm happy with my placement, I'm going to add some score lines, maybe right about here, and also trim off some of this excess. And what I'm going to do is tuck this behind my panel, and then we're going to add this at the very end on the back to kind of hold it all together, and also add some ribbon in the process. But yeah, next I'm going to add my score lines, and I'm going to do this at the same time. So again, layering these two pieces together so that my score lines are fairly symmetrical on both sides. So here is my hunky-dory adorable scoreboard, and I've doubled up my panels just so I don't have to do this twice. And I'm going to score at about 5 inches, and that's going to give us that line, that fold, so that we can tuck and trim some of this excess off of our panels. So here are my panels. So if I open that up, you see the decorative edge there. I have my score line, and I'm gonna have to trim off some of this excess. But I wanted to show you these panels and how to make them, because you can just use bigger cardstock if you want a bigger card. All right, so now I'm just lining everything up, and yes, I definitely have to trim. I want to trim some of this excess over here, but also some off the top and off of the bottom as well. I'm going to trim off some of this excess with my paper trimmer. So again, I'm just doubling up these panels, and I'm going to trim off this part so it doesn't get in our way. So here are my panels on my hot pink cardstock. I'm just kind of eyeballing this and making sure it's centered, because what I want to do is, again, trim off this excess. So I'm going to trim right about there, just making a rough mark there and right there and right there, and we're just going to trim that excess. There's one panel done. So now I just have to trim this side. Okay, so there are my panels all trimmed down, and this is what the back looks like. And I know it looks really bad, but we're going to cover it up with the second panel in just a bit. Before I move on, I want you to do all of my stamping and heat embossing on my pink cardstock. So I'm going to start off with white, the white embossing, and I used this gorgeous leafy stamp, and I'm going to add a border, a white border. So there's going to be a border here of repeating leaf stamps and one down here. For my embossing ink, I'm using the Ranger Letter It, and it's in clear, and I absolutely love this stuff. It's really juicy. And for the white embossing powder, I'm using Cosmic Shimmer Detail Embossing Powder in True White. There's one side all done, and I'm just going to flip my cardstock over and repeat the process on this side. All right, now I'm going to switch to silver embossing, and I'm going to grab my sentiment, which is sending birthday wishes, and I'm going to mount that onto my block. I'm using the same embossing ink, but for my embossing powder, I'm going to be using a Silver Shine, and this is Cosmic Shimmer as well. Here is my embossing all done, and now it's time to add my panels and to also add some ribbon in the process, because that's what's going to keep our card closed. Now, to attach my ribbon to my front panels, I'm going to be using this double-sided adhesive, and I want to say that this is probably the most complicated step about this whole project, but I feel like it's just really effective to add a little bit of ribbon detail, like a closure, to the front. So I'm going to add my tape on each side, and then I'm going to grab my ribbon. I want to say I need maybe about, I think I want to give myself enough so that I have enough to tie my bow at the end of it all. So I'm going to trim it right about there, and I'm going to double it up and trim a second one for the opposite side of my card. Now I'm going to remove this release paper and attach my ribbon. And I want to make sure that I'm leaving the excess on this side, on the left side for this one panel here. Because then if you did it the opposite way, then you wouldn't have any little excess here at the end, this little tail to tie the bow. So now our front panels look like this with that little ribbon tail. And now we can add this panel to our pink cardstock. This is what it looks like in the front, and this is what it's gonna look like in the back. And I'm gonna adhere this with my double-sided tape. So I'm going to put just a little bit right here on this edge. And also on this edge. My front panels are attached, and now I'm going to add my little backing card. But before I do that, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of excess here that I need to trim off. So let me grab my paper trimmer and just trim this little excess here. It must have shifted while I was gluing, but it's not a problem because I can just trim that up real easily. So I'm going to tie my ribbon into a bow. And then at the very end, my last step is going to be adding that backing card to cover up the paneling on the back of our cardstock. To attach my back panel, I'm using the Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue, but you can use any sort of adhesive. I just really love this stuff. It's one of my favorites. There's my panel on the back side of my card. So our card is done, and then when you untie the ribbon, you get a little nice embossed sentiment inside. Really fun to make. And also, this card does stand up on its own. So it's not just decorative. So when it's open, you can stand it up. So let me just tie this up again. Well, that's the end of the video. I hope that you were inspired by this easy die cutting technique, and also that you grab your copy of issue 179 of Simply Cards and Paper Craft. I'm Jeanette Lane, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye.